All right, y'all. So we're going over the query DNS section. And before we get into this, let's break down DNS a little bit. Let's have a good understanding. So DNS, this is what we use to resolve host names into IP addresses. Okay, we are resolving host names into IPs. So when we make a query to onlinesecurity.com, our web browser is going to reach out to a DNS resolver, which then reaches out to a DNS server for Online Security's IP address. Okay, we gave the web browser the host name. The web browser needs the IP address, so it asks a DNS server. Okay, that's the DNS process. Okay, now that information that we're grabbing from the DNS server, such as an IP address, right? That's being stored on the DNS servers, and it's not just storing Online Security's IP address; it's storing other host names as well. Okay, and it's storing it inside of a zone. Now, most times, a DNS server, for our DNS servers, we're going to have a backup. Most times, we're going to have a backup. Okay. Now, imagine if we had a DNS server here, call it DNS1, and then we had our backup DNS server 2. The easiest way to transfer all of that information, to transfer that zone from this DNS server to this DNS server is called a zone transfer. Okay, but in our zone transfers, we should not be a capability that third parties out here have. They should not be able to copy all the information from this DNS server to their server, or this DNS server to their server. Okay, that's a zone transfer when we're transferring the information within DNS zones over to a different server. Now, typically we do that to back up our initial DNS server. Okay, so now we're going to go through using a DNS command line tool called dig. We're going to use that. We're going to make some DNS queries, and we're going to actually do a zone transfer so we get a good understanding of what we're talking about right now. Oops, how do I get that off? Okay, so let me clear this up. And what the shortcut I use to clear my screen on a Linux terminal is Control L, the L character. Okay, first things first, we are using the dig utility. It is a command line tool, a DNS command line tool. If you do dig-h, you will get some, my mouse is so sensitive. You will get a little bit of information about dig, why it's used, how we can use it. Okay. Now, first thing we're going to do is do dig -x 10.1.0.254. Okay, we're doing a dig command against the same system we discovered during our network discovery scan. And the -x, when we are using -x within the dig utility, we are telling dig to perform a reverse lookup. Okay, we want a reverse lookup. In other words, we want the host name of this IP address. Okay, reverse lookup. A forward lookup is getting the IP. Now we want a reverse lookup. And we can see the host name here. Okay, this is the host name. And this is our domain controller. This is our domain controller. All right. And a little bit about what we see here. This PTR and SOA, these are records. These are DNS records. Okay, the PTR is the record that we use to look up domain names based on an IP address. So we are looking up a domain name based off of this IP address, 254.0.1.10. Okay, it's just this backwards. That's how we do the reverse lookup. And we're looking for this, the host name. All right, that's the PTR record, is the reverse lookup, what we use for a reverse lookup. SOA, this is the start of authority record. Okay, this is the start of authority record. This record specifies core information about a DNS zone, including the name of its server, DC1 515. Okay, let's select this. Now we want to run dig against corp515support.com. So let's give that a try. So dig SOA. Now we are specifying the type of record we want, the SOA record. Support.com. And look at all the information we get. Remember, the SOA gives us core information about a DNS zone. So we see some more SOA records. And then we see some A records. Okay, and the A record is actually one of the most basic records that we have. All right, the A record specifies the IP address for a given host. So for this host, this is the IP here. Okay, and for this host, this is the IP here. This is a IPv6 address. All right, and the quad A record, or the 4 A's we see, this is for IPv6 addresses. Okay, so we have our A records, which specify the IPs, whether it's IPv4 or IPv6, and then our SOA records, which specifies core information about our DNS zones. Let's mark. So we mark our progress here. And now we want to do a DNS zone lookup. Okay, well, not a zone lookup, a zone transfer. Sorry. We want to do a DNS zone transfer. And the way we do that with dig is by using this switch, the AXFR switch. So we'll do dig corp. We're going to do the DNS zone transfer against this server to see if we can grab information from this DNS zone. We shouldn't be able to, but we do. And what type of information do we grab? Records that are stored on that DNS server. And look at this. We can see records for a mail server. What's the A record? It points to an IP address. We see some more A records for a mail server. Here's the IPv6 address. We see some more A records for PC1 and PC2. These are the Windows workstations that we have connected to our domain. And we see their IPs. Okay, we see the SOA, which we already know about, DC1. But we get a lot of information here. A lot of information from the zone transfer, which we shouldn't be getting from this Linux machine. Okay, we see, we didn't talk about MX. This is another type of record. It's for our mail servers. This is a mail record. NS is the name server record. Okay, the name server record. All right, but this information shouldn't be accessible. Okay, DNS zone transfers should not be a thing for third parties. They're only for authorized individuals and systems. All right, so what I would like you all to do after going through this video, let's just spend some time just going through, maybe give this section a few more chances around, give it a few goes, practice with the commands, get familiar with dig, understand the switches that we use, such as this AXFR switch for the zone transfer, or the -X switch for the reverse lookup or the SOA switch for just the start of authority record. So that's it for this section. I will see you on the scan network topology.